The rain fell in relentless sheets, blurring the city lights into a chaotic swirl of gold and red. Alina pressed her forehead against the cold glass of her apartment window, staring down at the streets below where neon signs flickered and disappeared beneath the torrents. She had lived in this city her entire adult life, yet tonight, it felt alien, hostile, even as if the very air conspired to remind her that nothing was certain, nothing was safe. It had started that morning with a letter. A simple envelope, yellowed and creased, marked with a handwriting she vaguely recognized but couldn't place. She had hesitated before opening it, heart hammering against her ribcage, as though the paper itself contained a threat. Inside, a single line scrawled in the same familiar hand read, "You don't know the truth about your father." The words twisted her stomach into knots. She had thought she knew the story. Her father, a quiet man who disappeared when she was 12, had abandoned her and her mother, leaving only memories of laughter and occasional anger, half-forgotten holidays and whispered warnings. But now, that certainty, the fragile foundation she had built her life upon, was crumbling. Her phone buzzed violently against the counter. She snatched it up, revealing a message from an unknown number. "Meet me at the pier, midnight. Come alone. If you care about the truth." Elena's pulse quickened. Every instinct screamed at her to ignore it, to shred the note, and pretend she had never seen it. But something deeper, a gnawing curiosity she had spent years suppressing, compelled her. There was a part of her that had always felt the absence of her father like a shadow trailing her. A silent accusation that she had failed him somehow. By the time midnight came, she found herself standing at the edge of the pier, rain soaking her hair and clothes, hands trembling as she scanned the dark waters. A figure emerged from the shadows, a man, tall, with broad shoulders, his face obscured beneath a hood. "Are you Alina?" His voice was low, controlled, yet it made her flinch. "Yes," she whispered, trying to steady her voice. "Who are you?" "I'm someone who knew your father," he said, stepping closer, "and someone who wants you to know what really happened." Before it's too late, her mind raced. Questions collided with fear. What could be too late? Why now, after all these years? The man handed her a small, worn notebook, its leather cover cracked with age. "Everything you need to know is in here. But be warned, once you start reading, there's no turning back." Elena's hands shook as she accepted it. The rain fell harder, drumming against the wood beneath her feet, mingling with the echo of a truth she wasn't ready to face. Back in her apartment, Alina spread the notebook across her kitchen table. Each page was filled with her father's handwriting, journal entries, photographs, and letters she had never seen before. As she read, a picture of a man she barely knew emerged, someone brave, someone desperate, someone hiding a dangerous secret. Her father had been involved in something vast, something that threatened powerful people, people who would stop at nothing to keep the truth buried. Elena's heart pounded with each revelation, a mix of awe, anger, and fear coursing through her veins. She realized her father hadn't abandoned her. He had vanished to protect her, leaving behind clues for the day she could handle the truth. The sound of a knock at her door made her jump. She wasn't expecting anyone, not at this hour. Her mind raced. Could it be him? Or worse, those who wanted the secrets to remain hidden? "Who is it?" she called, trying to steady her voice. "Alina, it's me, Mark," a familiar voice said. Relief washed over her as she recognized her friend from college, someone who had always been by her side, even in the darkest times. Mark had always been more than a friend. She had long suppressed feelings she wasn't ready to confront. And seeing him now, wet from the rain, made her heart ache with unsaid words. I wasn't expecting anyone," she admitted, stepping aside to let him in. Mark's eyes immediately fell on the notebook. "Where did you get that?" She hesitated, then shook her head. "It doesn't matter. Not yet." But Mark persisted, and slowly, carefully, she explained everything. The letter, the pier, the notebook, the revelations about her father. As she spoke, Mark listened, his brow furrowed with concern and determination. "You're in danger, Alina," he said finally. All of this, it's bigger than you realize. You can't face it alone." Alina felt a shiver run down her spine. She had always been independent, had always prided herself on facing challenges head-on, but the weight of her father's hidden life pressed down on her, threatening to crush her. She nodded reluctantly. "I know, but I have to try. I need to know the truth." And so, they began their journey together. Nights filled with research, days of careful planning, and a growing tension between them that neither dared to name. Every discovery about her father's past brought them closer, but also deeper into danger. One evening, while poring over a set of letters in the dim glow of her apartment lamp, Alina stumbled upon a photograph that made her blood run cold. It was her father standing beside a woman she did not recognize. Someone who bore an uncanny resemblance to her, a sister, an aunt, or a stranger with ties too dangerous to ignore. Before she could process it, her phone buzzed with a message that froze her heart. "Stop digging or you'll be next. This is your final warning." The storm outside mirrored the storm inside her. Fear, anger, and a fierce determination mingled in a way that left her trembling. She realized then that her life would never be the same. The past she had tried to bury, the love she had tried to suppress, and the danger she had tried to ignore had all come crashing into the present. Alina looked at Mark, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "I can't turn back," she whispered. Mark reached for her hand, a silent promise passing between them. "Then we move forward together." And in that moment, amidst the shadows of the city and the echoes of secrets long buried, Alina understood the truth. Her life had been a series of choices dictated by fear, but now she would choose courage. The night stretched on, long and uncertain, but for the first time in years, Alina felt alive. The journey had begun, and nothing, not even the darkest secrets of the past, would stop her from uncovering the truth, reclaiming her life, and perhaps finding love in the process. The city was quieter now, the rain reduced to a persistent drizzle that blurred the streetlights into soft halos. Alina sat on the edge of her bed, the notebook open before her, pages splayed like a map of a dangerous unknown world. Every word she read about her father's life, his enemies, and the secrets he had tried to protect felt like a punch to her chest. She knew that danger was no longer abstract, it had arrived at her doorstep. Mark was next to her, leaning against the wall, arms crossed, a frown etched into his features. His presence was comforting, yet it also reminded her of the unspoken tension that simmered between them. She had always cared for him deeply, but love had always seemed like a luxury she couldn't afford in a life so precarious. Now, as they pored over letters, photographs, and cryptic journal entries, she realized that the stakes were higher than she had ever imagined. "There's something here," Mark said, pointing to a photograph of her father with another man she didn't recognize. "Do you know who this is?" Alina shook her head. "No. But he looks important. Dangerous." Mark leaned back, rubbing his temples. "Alina, I think we're in over our heads. Whatever your father was involved in, it's bigger than just family secrets. There are people who will hurt anyone in their way." Elena's heart clenched. Fear was a constant companion now, but so was determination. "I have to know the truth," she whispered, "even if it destroys me." Days passed in a tense blur. Every trip to the library, every call to old contacts, and every quiet night spent studying the notebook drew Alina and Mark deeper into the labyrinth of her father's past. Slowly, clues emerged. Coded letters, mysterious financial transactions, and references to people who seemed to have vanished without a trace. It was clear her father had been running from something or someone with motives that reached far beyond the personal then. The first betrayal hit. It was a quiet afternoon when Elena's closest friend, someone she had trusted since childhood, arrived unannounced at her apartment. Her smile was warm, but her eyes betrayed a flicker of something else, something that made Elena's skin crawl. "I heard about your father," the friend said, casually sipping coffee. "It must be complicated." Alina nodded cautiously, feeling the edge of suspicion. "Yes, it is." Her friend leaned in slightly, voice lowering. "You know, some things are better left alone. Digging too deep could ruin everything you've built. Some secrets are dangerous." Elena's stomach twisted. Something about the words didn't sit right. She thanked her friend politely, but the seed of doubt had been planted. Could someone she trusted be working against her? That night, as she and Mark went over the notebook again, she noticed subtle discrepancies, pages missing, letters out of order. Her heart sank as the realization hit. Someone had been tampering with her father's records, someone close enough to know she was searching. The next day brought more loss. Her apartment was broken into. Nothing seemed stolen at first glance, but when she looked closer, she saw the notebook had been rifled through. Some pages were torn, some notes missing. Fear surged like a tidal wave. She had entered a dangerous game, and the players knew her every move. Mark was furious. "We need to leave now. They know where you live." Alina shook her head, hands trembling. "No, I can't run. I need to finish this. I need the truth." Mark's jaw tightened. "And if the truth kills you?" She looked away, unable to answer. Her resolve was stronger than fear, but the weight of isolation pressed down on her. She realized that in this quest, she could only trust herself, and perhaps Mark, though even he was increasingly at risk by staying close to her. The betrayal cut deeper than the break-in. It wasn't just about danger, it was about trust. People she had loved, relied on, and confided in might not be who they appeared to be. Every friendly smile, every comforting word, now carried a shadow of doubt. She couldn't tell, friend from foe, ally from enemy, and in that uncertainty, loneliness gnawed at her. Romantically, her bond with Mark deepened, complicated by the stress and danger surrounding them. There were moments of vulnerability where Alina would lean on him and he would hold her hand, whisper reassurances. Each touch was electric, a forbidden comfort in a world where nothing felt safe. Yet fear and mistrust always lingered in the background. threatening to pull them apart even as desire and affection grew stronger. Late one night, as they sat together on the couch, poring over the torn pages, a message appeared on Elena's phone. It was from an unknown number. "You trust the wrong person. Stop or lose everything." Her chest tightened. Mark looked at her, eyes dark with concern. "Do you know who it is?" Elena shook her head. "No, but it's someone who knows we're looking." Panic threatened to overwhelm her, but she swallowed it down. "We can't stop. Not now." Mark nodded, reluctantly agreeing. "Okay, but we need a plan. If they're watching, we need to be smarter, faster." In the days that followed, Elena and Mark became shadows themselves, moving carefully, contacting old associates of her father's, piecing together the puzzle of a man who had been much more than the quiet father she remembered. The more they discovered, the more dangerous it became. People from the past began appearing in the present, some offering help, others offering threats disguised as advice. And then, the ultimate loss hit. Elena's mother, who had always been a pillar of quiet strength, was hospitalized after a mysterious accident. The timing was too coincidental. Elena realized that the threats weren't just about her, they were reaching into her family, her past, her very life. Sitting in the hospital room, watching her mother sleep, Elena felt an unbearable mix of grief and rage. She had uncovered the first pieces of a hidden truth, but in doing so, she had unleashed forces she could neither control nor fully understand. The person she thought she was, the life she had built, all seemed to crumble in the shadow of her father's secrets. Mark placed a hand on her shoulder, grounding her. "We'll get through this," he said quietly. "We have to." Elena looked at him, eyes brimming with tears. "I can't lose anyone else. Not you, not her, not anyone." Mark held her gaze, his voice firm, unwavering. "Then don't fight like your father did. Fight with everything you've got." That night, as Elena lay awake in the sterile hospital room, she knew the path ahead would be treacherous. Friends might be enemies, allies might be hiding motives, and love itself could be a fragile, dangerous thread. But one thing was clear, she could never turn back. The betrayals, the losses, and the darkness only strengthened her resolve. And somewhere, deep in the shadows of the city, someone watched, patient, calculating, waiting for the next move in a game that Elena had only just begun to play. Elena barely slept that night. The sterile hospital walls seemed to close in around her as the storm of fear and determination raged in her mind. Her mother's shallow breaths on the monitor were a reminder of what was at stake, and the relentless drizzle outside mirrored the turmoil inside her. Every shadow felt like it could conceal a threat, every footstep outside the room a harbinger of danger. Mark sat beside her, eyes heavy with exhaustion. They had spent the day tracing leads from her father's past, contacting people who might have answers, only to find themselves met with silence or worse, threats. Each call, each message, each inquiry seemed to draw more attention, as if some invisible enemy was tracking their every move. "We can't stay here," Mark whispered, his voice taut with tension. "Every step we take is being watched. We need to move. Find somewhere safe to regroup." Elena shook her head, a stubborn fire in her eyes. "I can't leave her. Not now. She needs me." Mark's jaw tightened. "I know. But think, Elena, if they find us here, it won't just be you who suffers. We have to be smarter." Her heart ached with the impossible choice. She wanted to protect her mother, yet she knew Mark was right. Danger had escalated beyond what she could manage from the hospital room. Reluctantly, she nodded. They had no choice but to flee, to go underground until they could decipher the next piece of the puzzle. They moved quickly, gathering essentials and leaving subtle misdirections for anyone who might follow. As they slipped into the wet, darkened streets, the city felt alien, a labyrinth of shadows, where every alley could conceal a trap. Elena clutched the notebook tightly, its pages now carefully secured in a waterproof satchel. Each word was precious, each clue a lifeline in a world increasingly hostile and uncertain. Their first stop was an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city, a place her father had used years ago for secret meetings. Dust hung thick in the air, and the floor creaked beneath their feet, echoing in the cavernous space. Mark set up a small workstation with laptops and phones, connecting to encrypted networks, while Elena spread out the notebook on a makeshift table. Hours passed in tense silence. Every ping of a new message or email made them jump, expecting another warning or threat. Yet despite the fear, there was a strange rhythm to their work, a shared determination that deepened the unspoken connection between them. "You know," Mark said quietly, breaking the silence through all this, "I've realized something." Elena looked up, wary. "What?" He hesitated, as if weighing the risk of saying too much. "I can't imagine going through this without you. I don't know, Elena, you're the reason I keep fighting too." Her stomach fluttered, a mixture of fear, relief, and something more complicated. She wanted to respond, to admit that her feelings mirrored his. yet the danger around them made words feel fragile, almost foolish. Instead, she nodded, a faint smile brushing her lips, and returned to the notebook. Their investigation led them to a series of coded entries in her father's journal, referencing meetings with a powerful organization intent on silencing him. As they decoded the notes, a pattern emerged. Certain individuals had been targeted, not randomly, but according to a meticulous plan. Elena's father had been at the center, shielding those he cared about. But now the protection had shifted to her. The night deepened, and the rain turned into a heavy drumming storm. The sound of tires splashing through puddles on the distant road made Elena's heart leap. A vehicle approached the warehouse, its headlights slicing through the darkness. They had been followed. Quick, Mark hissed, grabbing her hand. We need to move now. Elena's pulse thundered in her ears as they dashed through the side exit, winding through the narrow streets and alleys she barely recognized. The rain soaked them to the bone, but adrenaline propelled them forward. Every shadow seemed alive, every sound amplified, as if the city itself conspired to reveal their pursuers. They ducked into a deserted subway station, heartbeats echoing in the tunnels. Here, away from the streets, Elena finally allowed herself a breath. Who are they? She whispered, her voice trembling. Mark shook his head, scanning the dark tunnels. I don't know yet, but they're organized, skilled, dangerous, and they want the notebook. As they moved deeper into the station, a sudden noise and metallic scrape made them freeze. Someone was following. Elena gripped a pipe for protection, every muscle coiled with tension. The shadows shifted and a figure emerged, hooded and silent. Mark stepped in front of her, a silent barrier, but the figure paused, hands raised. A voice surprisingly familiar spoke. Elena, it's me. Her heart stopped. The hood came down, revealing her childhood friend, someone she had trusted implicitly. But their eyes, cold, calculating, devoid of the warmth she remembered. Betrayal cut deep. Why? She breathed, disbelief and fear mingling. I'm sorry, they said, voice calm, almost detached. But you don't understand what's at stake. Your father's secrets. They can't survive. Neither can you. Before Elena could react, the figure lunged and Mark intercepted a struggle erupting in the shadows. Elena's instincts screamed, heart hammering as she tried to decide who to trust, who to fight, and how to protect the fragile thread of hope she still clung to. The fight ended abruptly when sirens wailed in the distance, forcing the figure to retreat into the darkness. Elena collapsed against the wall, trembling, soaked, terrified. Mark pulled her into an embrace, holding her tight. They'll be back, he said quietly. And next time, it could be worse. Elena nodded, tears mingling with rain on her cheeks. The realization settled like a stone in her chest. There was no turning back. The chase had begun in earnest, and every step forward was a step into greater danger. In the following days, they became ghosts, moving through the city with careful precision. Each encounter with the mysterious organization escalated the threat, and every clue they uncovered about her father's past revealed layers of deception, power struggles, and betrayal. Friends turned to foes, allies revealed hidden motives, and the line between love and survival blurred. Romance, too, was a battlefield. In stolen moments, Elena and Mark's hands would brush, their eyes would meet, and for a fleeting heartbeat, the world outside, the danger, the betrayal, the storm would vanish. But reality always intruded, reminding them that trust was a luxury they could scarcely afford. Late one evening, Elena discovered a hidden letter in the notebook, a final message from her father. It spoke of a meeting, a place where answers could be found, and a warning. The chase is only the beginning. Trust no one completely. Your life depends on it. Her chest tightened. The path ahead was clear, yet fraught with peril. She and Mark would have to navigate lies, danger, and the shadows of the past. But Elena felt a spark of resolve she hadn't known before. Her father had fought, and now it was her turn, as they vanished into the night. Blending with the rain-soaked streets, Elena realized the truth. Life was no longer about certainty. It was about survival, courage, and the relentless pursuit of truth even when the shadows threatened to consume everything she held dear. And somewhere, deep in the darkness, the eyes of their pursuers followed, patient and unyielding, waiting for the moment Elena faltered. Elena sat in the dim light of a rented safe house, the rain outside pounding like a drumbeat against the metal roof. The notebook lay open before her, but tonight she wasn't just reading. She was searching. Every photograph, every cryptic note, every journal entry now seemed to pulse with urgency. She could feel the weight of her father's life pressing down on her, demanding that she understand the truth he had fought so hard to protect. Mark leaned against the wall, eyes scanning the darkened streets outside through the narrow window. Their movements had become cautious, almost ritualistic, entering a room only after checking exits, traveling under cover of darkness, always alert. Yet, despite the fear, he never let go of Elena's hand. a tether that grounded her even when the world seemed poised to collapse around them. "Look at this," Alina said, pointing to a series of photographs she had uncovered tucked between the notebook's pages. They depicted her father standing alongside men and women who radiated power, some in suits, some in military uniforms, and others whose faces were obscured. Each image was stamped with dates and locations that traced a hidden network spanning cities and even countries. Mark's brow furrowed. "These aren't just connections. They're alliances. Your father wasn't hiding from something small. He was protecting something big, really big." Alina swallowed, her throat tight. "But what? And why keep me in the dark all these years?" Mark shook his head. "I don't know. But judging by the threats, these people, whoever they are, wouldn't hesitate to hurt anyone connected to him, including you." Hours of cross-referencing letters, photographs, and journal entries led to a breakthrough. Hidden within coded messages was a location, an address that seemed to be a repository of her father's secrets, documents, files, and perhaps even answers about his disappearance. Alina felt a surge of hope, tempered by fear. "We have to go there," she said, determination hardening her features. "If we don't, I'll never know the truth. And I can't let anyone else control my life the way they've controlled his." Mark nodded, though his eyes betrayed concern. "I'll go with you. But we need to plan carefully. This could be a trap." The journey to the location was tense. Every shadow seemed alive, every unfamiliar face a potential threat. They moved like phantoms through the city, guided by the cryptic instructions in the notebook. When they arrived, an abandoned mansion loomed before them, its windows dark and foreboding, ivy crawling across its stone walls like the fingers of time itself. Inside, the air was thick with dust and secrets. Alina's footsteps echoed as they moved from room to room, discovering old files, photographs, and letters detailing her father's work. It became clear that he had been entangled in a battle against a powerful organization, one that sought to manipulate politics, finance, and information for their own gain. His efforts had been clandestine, his enemies formidable. One file, however, made her blood run cold. It contained photographs of people she recognized from her childhood friends, neighbors, even a distant relative. Each had been carefully monitored, some apparently threatened, others coerced into silence. Among them, she saw herself as a child, smiling innocently, unaware that the world she grew up in was fraught with danger. This is why he disappeared," Alina whispered, voice trembling. "He was protecting us, all of us." Mark placed a hand on her shoulder. "And now it's your turn." They continued exploring and stumbled upon a locked room in the basement. Using clues from the notebook, Alina managed to open it, revealing a trove of documents, financial records, secret correspondences, and a series of videotapes labeled with dates spanning years of her father's disappearance. One tape, in particular, was labeled with a date shortly before his vanishing. Hands trembling, Alina placed it in an old player, and the screen flickered to life. There he was, her father, speaking directly to her. "Alina," he said, voice steady but tinged with urgency. "If you are seeing this, it means I am gone, or in danger. There are things you need to know about me, about the choices I made, and about the people who will stop at nothing to bury the truth. You must be careful. Trust wisely. Your life depends on it." Her hands shook as she watched, tears streaming down her face. He spoke of betrayals, sacrifices, and dangerous enemies. He revealed that he had uncovered corruption that could topple powerful figures, and that protecting her meant disappearing, severing ties, and leaving clues only she could follow once she was ready. Alina's mind reeled. The man she thought she knew, quiet, absent, ordinary, had been a force of courage and intelligence, battling shadows far larger than herself. And now, it was her burden, her responsibility. The tape ended, leaving a heavy silence. Mark squeezed her hand, grounding her. "We can do this," he said quietly. "Together." But the moment of revelation was a noise-soft, deliberate ode from the mansion's entrance. Footsteps. They weren't alone. Alina's heart pounded as they hid in the shadows. The organization her father had fought so hard to evade had found them. One of the members stepped forward, scanning the room with calculated precision. Their eyes met Alina's for a brief second, recognition flashing like lightning. "You found what you weren't supposed to see," the figure said, voice cold. "And now, you're part of this. Whether you like it or not." Mark stepped in front of her, protective and defiant. "If you think you can intimidate her, you're wrong. We'll fight. We'll do whatever it takes." The figure smiled, a chilling, patient smile. "Bravery is admirable, but bravery without strategy will get you killed." A tense standoff ensued, the shadows of the mansion thickening as rain pounded the roof above. Alina's mind raced plans, escapes, possibilities, but amid the fear, there was clarity. The truth about her father, about the world he had fought against, was hers to confront, and she would not back down. In the quiet moments before the confrontation escalated, Mark leaned close. "We have each other," he whispered. No matter what comes, Alina nodded, feeling a deep surge of determination. The secrets had been revealed, but the battle was only beginning. And in that moment, amid danger and revelation, she realized the true power of courage. It was not the absence of fear, but the willingness to move forward despite it. The days after discovering her father's hidden truths were a blur of tension and exhaustion. Alina and Mark moved like shadows, constantly looking over their shoulders, following leads, and deciphering coded messages. The mansion encounter had left them shaken but determined. Every step forward revealed more of the web her father had been caught in, and more threats lurking in the shadows. Yet despite their careful planning, the world around them seemed to crumble. It began with small losses. Contacts who had promised information went silent. Emails disappeared, phones stopped responding. And Alina realized that the organization was tightening its grip, monitoring every move. The network her father had built to protect them was deteriorating, leaving her vulnerable. Then came the first devastating blow. One night, as they returned to a safe house, they found it ransacked. Files were stolen, the notebook partially shredded, and a threatening note left behind. "You should have stopped when you had the chance." Alina sank to the floor, hands covering her face. She felt the weight of helplessness pressing down on her chest. All the progress, all the discoveries were slipping through her fingers. Mark knelt beside her, trying to offer reassurance. But even his presence couldn't erase the sting of defeat. "We can't give up," he said quietly, voice firm but calm. "We rebuild. We keep moving. We find the answers no matter what." Alina shook her head, tears streaking her cheeks. How? How can we keep moving when everything we touch turns to danger? Everything my father built, it's gone." Mark took her hand, squeezing it. "Because you're stronger than you think. You've faced shadows before and you'll face them again. Together, but strength alone couldn't stop the avalanche of misfortune." Soon after, news arrived that crushed her completely. Her mother's health had deteriorated further. The mysterious accident that had put her in the hospital was more severe than they had been told. Doctors had discovered internal injuries that seemed suspicious. Alina's heart raced with anger and guilt. She had been chasing secrets while her mother suffered, and now the threat felt personal, unavoidable. Alina's emotions spiraled. Fear, grief, and rage collided, leaving her feeling unanchored. She questioned every decision, every step forward, every trust she had placed in Mark or anyone else. Could she survive the labyrinth her father had left behind? Was the cost of truth worth the price of those she loved? Romantically, the tension with Mark reached a breaking point. In quieter moments, they found solace in each other, their shared danger and vulnerability drawing them closer. Yet the fear of losing one another and the constant threat of betrayal made intimacy complicated, fragile. Words of affection were tinged with worry. Touches were fleeting, urgent, like stolen moments in a storm. The ultimate test came unexpectedly. As Alina and Mark followed a lead that promised insight into her father's enemies, they were ambushed. Shadows moved with lethal precision, and Alina barely had time to react, as Mark was struck by a sudden blow, collapsing against her. The notebook flew from her hands, scattering pages into the rain-slicked street. Adrenaline surged and instinct took over. Alina fought, struggling against unseen assailants, every fiber of her being focused on survival. Fear twisted into rage as she realized the stakes weren't just about uncovering the truth. They were about life and death. By the time the ambush ended, the consequences were devastating. Mark lay injured, barely conscious, and the remaining notebook pages were gone. Elena's hands shook violently, her chest heaving. For the first time, she felt truly powerless. The weight of loss was crushing that night. Sitting by a rain-streaked window in a temporary refuge, Alina reflected on everything that had happened. The chase, the betrayals, the threats, and now Mark's injuries. The world she had stepped into was unforgiving. But in the darkness, she also realized something crucial. She had survived and she had learned. Every loss, every mistake, every pain had hardened her resolve. She thought of her father's warning: trust no one completely. Your life depends on it. It wasn't just a caution, it was a lesson. Survival wasn't about perfection, it was about resilience, courage, and the ability to adapt in the face of overwhelming odds. As Mark stirred, groaning softly, Alina reached out, brushing his damp hair from his forehead. "We'll make it," she whispered, more to herself than to him. We have two. Romantic tensions simmered in the quiet moment. She realized that the bond they shared wasn't just about comfort or safety, it was a partnership forged in fire. Danger, fear, and shared purpose had transformed it into something unbreakable. Yet the heartbreak of the day reminded her that love in a world like theirs came with risk. And sometimes, lost stopped by dawn, Alina had made a decision. She would no longer react to the threats. She would take control. The organization, the shadows, the betrayals, they would not dictate her path. She would pursue the truth, protect those she loved, and face the darkness with determination. But even as resolve strengthened, the city outside continued its indifferent hum. Somewhere in the shadows, enemies plotted, watching every move. And Alina knew this. The hardest battles were yet to come, and the losses she had suffered were only the beginning of a journey that would demand everything she had: heart, mind, and soul. The first light of dawn filtered through the cracked blinds of a small, nondescript apartment Alina had rented on the edge of the city. The rain had finally stopped, leaving streets glistening like molten glass under the soft glow of morning lamps. For the first time in days, she allowed herself a deep breath. The weight of loss, the shattered notebook, the ambush, Mark's injuries still pressed on her. But she felt something stirring inside. A quiet, resolute determination. Mark lay on the small sofa, bandages wrapped around his head and arm. He stirred, blinking against the pale morning light. "Morning," he mumbled, voice hoarse. Alina smiled faintly, moving to sit beside him. "Morning. You slept better than I did." He coughed lightly. "You've been thinking too much, haven't you?" "I've been planning," she corrected. "Planning how we get back what we lost? How we take control? We can't let them keep dictating everything." Mark studied her, admiration flickering in his tired eyes. "You're stronger than I realized." She glanced down, brushing a stray lock of hair from her face. "I have to be. There's no other choice." Their first task was recovery, physical, emotional, and strategic. Mark's injuries meant careful movement, but Alina had also taken a hard look at their resources. They had lost the notebook, but she had memorized key entries and locations. She began reconstructing a plan, tracing her father's steps, finding allies he had left behind, and uncovering the organization's network piece by piece. The days that followed were grueling. Alina worked tirelessly, decoding messages, tracking contacts, and gathering intelligence. Each discovery was a small victory, a reconstructed map of her father's hidden world. Each success, however, also brought new dangers. Surveillance seemed constant, and the organization's reach appeared boundless. But with each challenge, Alina's resolve hardened. She remembered the first time she had clutched the notebook, the fear that had almost paralyzed her. Now, fear was still there, but it had become fuel. Every loss, every betrayal, every ambush had strengthened her, sharpened her instincts, and clarified her purpose. Romance with Mark deepened during this time. Stolen moments of tenderness, holding hands while poring over notes, sharing a quiet meal, brushing hair from a weary face, became lifelines in a world filled with peril. There was an unspoken understanding between them. Trust had been forged in fire, and the bond they shared was no longer just affectionate, was survival. One evening, as rain began again, soft and insistent against the window pane, Alina discovered a lead that reignited hope. A former associate of her father, someone with detailed knowledge of the organization, was hiding nearby. The contact was cautious, wary, but willing to speak if Alina and Mark proved they could protect themselves. The meeting was tense. Shadows of the past lurked in the corners of the dim room, every noise amplified by fear. The associate spoke of secret operations, hidden agendas, and the immense power the organization wielded. But they also revealed a weakness, a flaw in the organization's chain of command that could be exploited. Alina absorbed every word, her mind racing. The pieces were falling into place, and for the first time she felt the faint thrill of possibility. The organization had been powerful, relentless, and omnipresent, but it was not invincible, and she had grown into a force they had underestimated. Mark watched her closely, pride and concern mingling in his gaze. "You've changed," he said softly. "You're unstoppable." Alina shook her head, a small smile touching her lips. "Not unstoppable, just determined. I've learned to survive, to fight, and to trust myself." Finally, their planning continued late into the night. They mapped strategies, discussed contingencies, and prepared for the confrontations that were inevitable. Alina's confidence grew, but she remained cautious, knowing that even a single misstep could prove catastrophic. Romantically, their closeness provided a rare anchor in the storm. In moments when the world outside threatened to engulf them, their connection reminded them of what they were fighting for: love, trust, and the hope of a life beyond shadows. Alina had learned that strength was not only about fighting enemies, it was also about allowing oneself to care, to hope, and to be vulnerable despite the risks. Days turned into weeks as they followed leads, gathered intelligence, and rebuilt their arsenal. Each success was small but meaningful: a recovered notebook page, a coerced insider providing information, a safe escape from surveillance. Every step forward reinforced their belief that they could reclaim what had been lost. One night, after a particularly grueling day tracing a lead through abandoned warehouses and back alleys, Alina and Mark stood on a rooftop, city lights stretching out below them. Rain had stopped, leaving the world washed clean, shimmering. "We're ready," Alina said quietly, "for whatever comes next." Mark nodded, his hand finding hers instinctively. Together, Alina took a deep breath, feeling the resolve solidify in her chest. The past had been dark, filled with betrayals, loss, and fear, but rising from those ashes, she had become someone capable of facing the darkness without flinching. The chase was not over. The danger was not gone, but she was ready, and somewhere, beyond the city lights, in the hidden corners where enemies watched and waited, a shift occurred. They had underestimated Alina. They had not accounted for her growth, her resilience, or the bond she shared with Mark. The storm was coming, and when it broke, it would be unstoppable. The city was a cold maze of shadows, its streets slick with the remnants of the night's rain. Alina and Mark moved with precision, each step calculated, each turn measured. The time for cautious investigation was over. The moment to confront the organization directly had arrived. For weeks they had prepared, rebuilt, and gathered intelligence. Now, all that planning would be tested against a ruthless enemy whose reach was both vast and unseen. Alina's heart thumped like a drum in her chest. As they approached the designated location, an abandoned industrial complex on the outskirts of the city, its walls scarred with rust and graffiti, windows broken and dark. This was the nerve center of the organization, or so the informant had claimed. It was here that Alina would finally uncover the full extent of her father's secrets and confront those responsible for the danger that had haunted her life. Mark glanced at her, concern etched deep into his features. "Are you ready?" Alina met his gaze, determination blazing in her eyes. "I have to be. No more running. No more waiting. This ends tonight." Together they slipped into the complex, shadows among shadows. Every creak of metal and echo of dripping water heightened the tension. They navigated the labyrinthine corridors with the precision of those who had faced death before, each footstep a testament to their survival instincts and hard-won resilience. Suddenly, lights flared and voices echoed through the cavernous space. Figures emerged from the shadows, armed, disciplined, and unyielding. Elena's pulse spiked, but she didn't falter. She had trained herself for this moment in her father's teachings, encoded in the notebook and in every lesson she had learned on her journey. Guided her actions. Mark moved to her side, protective and vigilant as they advanced. "We split up," he whispered. "We can cover more ground and get the files we need." Alina nodded, taking a deep breath. Every instinct screamed caution, but fear no longer paralyzed her. It was a tool, one she wielded with precision. She darted forward, slipping between shadows, her movements calculated, silent. In a small office at the far end of the complex, she discovered what they had been seeking: files, records, and digital drives containing the organization's plans, names, and secrets. The magnitude of the corruption was staggering. These people didn't just manipulate information, they controlled entire networks of power, influence, and fear. As Alina began copying files, a sound behind her made her freeze. A figure stepped from the shadows, tall, imposing, and unmistakably one of the organization's leaders. "You shouldn't have come here," he said, voice cold and measured. Alina squared her shoulders, meeting his gaze. "I didn't come here to run. I came for the truth, and I won't leave without it." The standoff was tense, a battle of wills. Each word carried weight, each movement a potential trigger. Mark appeared behind her, hand on her shoulder, a silent reassurance. Together, they faced the figure, a united front against overwhelming odds. Then, chaos erupted. Alarms blared, red lights flashing violently. Alina and Mark fought with a precision born of desperation and training, moving through a storm of adversaries. Every strike, every maneuver, every decision mattered. The fight was brutal, relentless, and unforgiving amid the chaos. Alina glimpsed the leader's vulnerability, a brief hesitation, a flicker of doubt. She seized the moment, using her knowledge of the complex and the element of surprise to her advantage. Files were secured, enemies neutralized, and the once intimidating leader forced into retreat. When the dust settled, Alina and Mark stood amidst the aftermath, breathing heavily, hearts racing. The organization's immediate threat had been neutralized, but the battle was far from over. Alina held the files tightly, a symbol of victory, knowledge, and hard-won power. Romantically, the tension of the confrontation forged an unbreakable bond between them. In the quiet moments after the fight, Mark drew her close. "We made it," he whispered, relief and affection mingling in his voice. Alina leaned into him, allowing herself a rare moment of vulnerability. "Together," she replied, "we survived. Together," but even in triumph, shadows lingered. The files revealed deeper, more insidious layers of corruption, suggesting that while they had won this battle, the war was far from over. Alina realized that her father's fight had been only the beginning, and now it was her responsibility to carry the torch, to confront not only the external threats, but the personal demons that had shaped her journey. As dawn broke over the city, casting a pale light over the streets, Alina felt a profound sense of transformation. The fear that had once controlled her life had been replaced with determination, clarity, and courage. The chase, the betrayals, The losses they had forged her into someone capable of facing the darkness without flinching. Mark squeezed her hand, grounding her in the moment. "This is only the beginning," he said softly. Alina nodded, eyes fixed on the horizon. "Then we'll face it together." And somewhere in the unseen corners of the city, those who had thought themselves untouchable began to realize that the girl they underestimated had become a force they could not ignore. The confrontation was over, but the journey, the fight for truth, justice, and survival was only beginning. The aftermath of the confrontation left the city strangely silent. Alina and Mark moved cautiously through its streets, the weight of the files in their possession heavier than any physical burden. They had survived the organization's assault, secured critical evidence, and exposed a network of corruption, but the journey was far from complete. Redemption was not given. It had to be earned. Alina's first task was reconciliation with herself. For years, she had been defined by fear, betrayal, and the shadows of her father's secrets. Now, standing on the precipice of change, she faced the consequences of her choices, the losses she had endured, and the courage she had discovered within herself. She returned to her mother, whose health had stabilized but remained fragile. Sitting by her bedside, Alina held her hand, feeling the steady pulse of life and the fragile strength that mirrored her own journey. "I've missed so much," Alina whispered, tears sliding down her cheeks. "I'm sorry for leaving, for chasing shadows while you suffered." Her mother's eyes, weary but filled with warmth, met hers. "You've done what you had to do, and you've grown into someone remarkable. Your father would be proud." The words struck Alina with profound clarity. Redemption, she realized, was not only about justice, it was about healing, about making amends, and about embracing the person she had become. Mark remained by her side, steadfast and unwavering. Their bond, forged in danger and tempered by love and trust, had survived ambushes, betrayals, and relentless fear. In quiet moments, they spoke of future possibilities of a life beyond shadows, and of the fragile hope that grew in the wake of hardship. Their next step was exposing the organization. Using the files they had recovered, Alina coordinated with trusted journalists, former associates of her father, and allies she had carefully cultivated. Slowly, meticulously, the truth emerged. Corruption laid bare, power structures dismantled, and those who had once seemed untouchable now facing consequences for their actions. The process was not without danger. Threats continued, subtle and overt, as remnants of the organization sought to protect themselves. Yet Alina moved with confidence and clarity, leveraging knowledge, strategy, and courage honed through countless trials. Each victory, each revelation brought a sense of justice, small at first, then magnifying into a larger, undeniable force. Romantically, Alina and Mark's relationship deepened into a profound partnership. No longer just lovers, they were allies, confidants, and anchors for one another. Moments of intimacy were both tender and charged, reminders that love could thrive even amidst chaos. Shared glances, quiet touches, and whispered reassurances became symbols of survival and hope. Yet redemption was also personal. Alina confronted those who had betrayed her, friends who had chosen self-preservation over loyalty, former associates of her father who had hidden truths, and even enemies who had once seemed insurmountable. Each encounter was an act of courage, a reclaiming of agency, and a release from the chains of fear and anger that had haunted her. The final step in her journey came when she visited her father's old study, a place untouched by time. She stood among relics of his life, photographs, books, and letters that had once seemed cryptic, but now told a story of sacrifice, bravery, and unwavering love for his family. For the first time, Alina felt a sense of closure. "I understand now," she whispered, touching the worn notebook that had guided her path. "You fought for us, and now I carry that fight forward. Your courage, your strength, your wisdom. I won't waste it." Mark placed a hand on her shoulder, silent but supportive. Together, they left the study, stepping into a city bathed in the early light of dawn. The shadows remained, yes, but they were no longer paralyzing. Alina had faced them, survived them, and emerged stronger as they walked through the streets, blending into the rhythm of life around them. Alina realized that redemption was not a single moment, it was a continuous journey of courage, forgiveness, and self-acceptance. She had reclaimed her life, exposed the truth, protected those she loved, and honored her father's legacy. And in that moment, with Mark beside her and the city awakening around them, Alina felt an unparalleled sense of peace and purpose. The darkness had not consumed her. It had forged her into someone capable of facing whatever challenges remained with clarity, strength, and unwavering determination. The city had changed. Shadows still lingered in alleyways and boardrooms, but their grip was no longer absolute. Alina walked with Mark through streets that now felt alive with possibility rather than threat. Every step carried the weight of hard-won victories, the echoes of past struggles, and the promise of a future forged from courage and resilience. Elena's first task in solidifying her father's legacy was ensuring that the organization he had fought against could no longer rise again. With the evidence they had exposed, the leaders had been prosecuted, their networks dismantled, and the innocents they had manipulated freed from invisible chains. The fight had been long, perilous, and emotionally taxing, but Elena's strategy and determination had transformed her father's unfinished mission into reality. The files she and Mark had secured became the cornerstone for systemic change. Corruption that had once seemed untouchable was now under public scrutiny. Government agencies and law enforcement, guided by the meticulous documentation Elena had unearthed, began reforms that her father had envisioned, but never had the chance to implement. Elena's name became synonymous with courage and integrity, though she remained humble. Knowing that the victories were born from collective effort and relentless perseverance amid the triumphs, personal healing flourished. Elena's mother's health stabilized, and the fragile moments of everyday life-sharing meals, walking through sunlit parks, laughing at small absurdities became treasured markers of normalcy and joy. The shadow of fear no longer dictated their choices. Instead, gratitude and love infused every decision. Romance with Mark blossomed fully. Their connection, tempered in fire and crisis, became a source of strength and partnership. No longer defined solely by survival, they could now dream, plan, and create a life together. Every glance, every touch, every whispered word carried the depth of shared experience and unwavering loyalty. Love, they realized, was both a refuge and a force just as powerful as the courage that had brought them through darkness. Elena also honored her father's memory in ways both public and private. She established a foundation dedicated to protecting those vulnerable to corruption and exploitation, providing resources and support for whistleblowers, activists, and families like hers who had suffered in silence. Each initiative was a living testament to his vision, ensuring that his courage and sacrifice continued to resonate far beyond the shadows that had once confined him. Yet even as she built this legacy, Elena never forgot the lessons learned in the crucible of danger. Trust, resilience, strategy, and empathy became guiding principles, shaping her decisions and interactions. She understood that power and influence were not ends in themselves, they were tools to protect, uplift, and create lasting change. One evening, standing on the rooftop of a building overlooking the city, Elena and Mark watched as the sun dipped below the skyline, casting gold and crimson hues across the horizon. The city, once a labyrinth of fear and treachery, now seemed filled with possibility. Mark wrapped an arm around her, drawing her close. "You've done it," he said softly. "You've taken everything your father fought for and made it real, and you've become incredible." Elena rested her head on his shoulder, breathing in the cool evening air. "We did it together," she replied. "I couldn't have survived this alone. And now it's our turn to live, to build, to protect what matters." They lingered there in silence, watching the city hum with life, each heartbeat a reminder of everything they had endured and everything they had gained. Elena knew the journey had shaped her irrevocably. She had faced fear, betrayal, and loss, but she had emerged not only victorious but whole, empowered, and ready to shape the future on her own terms. In the quiet, a sense of fulfillment settled over her. The darkness that had once threatened to consume her life had forged her into someone capable of guiding light, justice, and hope. She had taken her father's legacy, transformed it into action, and made it her own. And in the heart of the city, as night fell and stars shimmered above, Elena realized the truth that had carried her through every trial. Courage, love, and unwavering resolve could turn even the deepest shadows into a foundation for legacy, justice, and a life worth living.